Welcome. Thank you all so much for coming to this presentation on the last day of the conference at 1:30. We're very thankful that you're here. We know you have planes to catch and you had a lot of fun at Data Night Out and partied a little hard, not talking to anyone in particular, in the back, in the corners. My name is Lisa Trescott. This is Kimberly Coots. We are both research analysts at MiraCosta College, and we're going to be talking to you today about how the superheroes back at our campus are using our data dashboards to turn data into action figures. So just a quick overview of the presentation. We're going to go through a couple of engagement strategies, then we're going to go into some sample dashboards, and if there's time at the very end, we ask that you save questions for last. Kim and I are going to have to go faster than a speeding bullet to get through this presentation, so we do ask that you save those questions. And just heads up, that is the first of many very cheesy, corny superhero references. I'm very glad I have these headphones on and I can't hear your reaction to them. So just a little bit about our origin story. We purchased Tableau in 2017, and we were really excited about it because we saw the potential that it had to improve our college and the way we interact with data. And so we spent a lot of time and energy turning all of our static reports and our Excel spreadsheets into these awesome, dynamic, interactive dashboards, and crickets. No one was using them. We kept getting emails and phone calls from people asking for information that we had already put out there in a dashboard. And Kim and I very quickly got sick of responding to people saying, there's already a dashboard for that. And so we knew that we really needed to convince our campus community that data and the data dashboards were not kryptonite. They're actually very useful for them. So there were a couple of things that we did to get people more engaged. And the first is we went out to the various committees across our campus, and we did hands-on presentations in computer labs, showing them the dashboards that we thought would be most pertinent to them, to show them the functionality and get them used to using dashboards in general. The other thing we did was we held a series of office hours, where one of the research analysts in our office would sit in a hands-on computer lab, and people were invited to just drop in and ask any question they had, whether it be about specific dashboards in general, any data points, and we would be there to answer all those questions for them. The other thing that we do now is anytime we roll out a dashboard, we do a one-on-one tutorial with the person or people who have requested it, or who that we think would benefit most from the information in that dashboard, making sure that the functionality works for our end user, because we know that if it doesn't, no matter how much we try to engage people, they're not going to be using the dashboards. And so this was really great, but the problem was, if you weren't on a committee, you didn't come to an office hour, or you never got a one-on-one tutorial, you might not have even known that our dashboards existed. So we knew that we needed to cast a wider net so that we could reach people across our college, and faculty and staffs in all areas. So what we came up with was our Dashboard of the Month series. I'm sure many of you come from colleges that also have newsletters, and we have a newsletter that goes out college-wide on a weekly basis. And we figured that would be the perfect venue for us to introduce people to dashboards each month. So over the course of an entire academic year, the first week of every month, we would introduce people to our Dashboard of the Month. Just a quick description in the newsletter, hey, this is the course success dashboard, and this is the type of information that you can get out of it. In week 2, one of our analysts would take that Dashboard of the Month and pull out a fun did you know fact, just something really short and sweet to get people interested. So did you know that our math course success rate has been on the rise the past 5 terms? Just something really pithy to get them engaged. And then in week 3, now that they've gotten some use out of the dashboards, they know what it is, we put them to the test and we did data scavenger hunts. So this was just a quick 1 or 2 question thing where we would ask people the question, they'd have to go out, use the dashboard to get the answer, and then everyone who submitted their answer, or the correct answer, would be entered into a drawing to win a prize. So this is just an example of what we did one. It's just 1 or 2 questions, and we give them a little helpful tip to point them in the right direction because we don't want people to get frustrated. And then tell them anyone who answers by the time will either be entered into a drawing to get a gift certificate and a fun little certificate that we print out saying, you're the Dashboard of the Month winner this month. Okay. Something is happening. Okay, so we got a lot of really great feedback from that. And we also were seeing a lot of spikes in our usage for the dashboards that were featured each month. The problem was we started noticing very quickly that the same people were doing the scavenger hunts. And so we felt like, okay, people are using the dashboards, they're engaging, but only a handful of people who actually feel comfortable enough to submit an answer to these questions. And so we wanted to make sure that people understood how to use the dashboards. And around this time, I was fortunate enough to come to Tableau conference last year, and I went to a presentation by Winston-Salem State University, where they presented a bunch of digital challenges that they had done to engage and train their users. And so we loved their idea. And what we came up with was our digital escape room. For those of you not familiar with the concept of an escape room, essentially you and 3 or 4 of your friends go to a usually rundown office park, get locked in a room, and you have to solve puzzles and riddles and find clues to escape the room, usually in about an hour time frame. So we thought this was a great way to train our employees. And so what we did is we brought that into the digital space, and we created our escape room. And this is a very text-heavy page. I don't expect you to read the introduction and the instructions for the escape room, saying you're going to go through 3 challenges and answer 3 questions on each challenge in order to get you more familiar with the different features you're going to see when you go out to our dashboards and get you more comfortable using them. Because it is a learning experience, we also put these little tooltips and help icons throughout each challenge so people didn't get frustrated and just stop doing it. And then because escape rooms are typically timed and the analysts in our office are insanely competitive, we put a stopwatch at the top of the dashboard, so that as soon as people enter the room, they started the stopwatch, and then then they would send their screenshot of their finish time at the end, and we made a little leaderboard for them. So each challenge really focuses on helping people get used to a specific feature within Tableau. So challenge 1 was all about filters. I'm so glad the sound effect worked. So this is what each challenge looked like. It's just a very simple visualization, and there are 3 questions across the top. Each has a drop-down menu for them to answer. And since this one's about filters, we have a single select radio button filter, and then a series of multi-select drop-downs, because those are the filters that we use in almost every single one of our dashboards. So we really want people to be comfortable with those ones in particular. This is also the first time that people are going to be seeing a tooltip potentially, and so we wanted to make it really obvious what a tooltip was. So just put a description in there saying you're often going to find more information here than what you might see on the chart. And they're actually going to have to use a tooltip to answer one of these questions. So now they're comfortable with filters. Challenge 2 is all about parameters. So in addition to using filters, they're also going to have to use these 2 parameters, which is a disaggregation parameter, so changing from gender to ethnicity or age, and then changing the sort order for any of the bar charts. So just getting them used to the idea that charts are dynamic. It's not always necessarily going to be just what you see when you click on the dashboard. So if we change it to ethnicity and sorting by units attempted, the whole chart changes. You guys are familiar with parameters. And then challenge 3 is all about hidden charts. So I'm sure you all have the same issue that we do, and that is real estate on your dashboards is precious. And so oftentimes what we do is we make a main point, but then we hide a lot of the details in a chart that's kind of behind the scenes, so that it can be there if somebody has that more in-depth question. And that's what challenge 3 is all about. So you can see it's just very simple donut charts. But one of the questions is asking about the letter grades that go into that success rate. It's not intuitive that clicking on a chart is going to pop out another chart. So this help icon is especially helpful for this challenge, telling them basically you need to click on this chart. With the idea being they need to click on this purple section, and a second bar chart will pop out, showing them the actual grades that contributed to that percent success. Once they go through all 3 challenges, there is a question down here that asks, did you escape? So they click on this arrow, and no, the door is still closed. And so they have not escaped yet. But again, this is a learning environment. We want people to not get too frustrated. So we gave them this little legend down here in the bottom right, showing them that challenge 1, you're good, challenge 2, you're good, challenge 3, there's something going on. And if you hover over it, it actually says, go check your answers for challenge 3. So just pointing them in the right direction. Once they go back, fix their answer, and then come back to this tab, the door opens, they have escaped the room. And so remember, this whole time, that stopwatch has been running. And so we tell them, as soon as this door opens, stop the stopwatch, and then send us a screenshot of your open door and your time so we could create a leaderboard. So these are our top times. We have masked the identity of our superheroes here, but they are not masked at home. And again, just trying to make it fun. We have all gone through very boring training, online trainings, I'm sure. And so we wanted people to have fun with this. This was really set up to be a game, but also a learning experience. I don't know why it keeps doing this. And we got really great feedback from this as well. One of the administrative assistants who opened the door sent me her screenshot and said, "This tool was amazing. Now when my dean asks me how to get, or what information she needs, I know how to get it." And so I'm pretty sure somebody paid her to say that, because that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted people who had not had interaction with the dashboard or used them to understand how to use them now. But because the master plan in our office is to trick as many people as possible into having fun with data, we did not stop there. In September of this year, to welcome people back to campus, we rolled out Data Bingo, which essentially was just this bingo card, and they could print this card out, and each square has one of our dashboards in it. So there's a link, and then again, just a short question about the dashboard. If you get 5 in a row, you get a bingo. The more bingos you get, the more entries you get into winning a $25 Amazon gift card and a custom-made Data Bingo trophy, which I think was the real lure there.
The draw.
Throughout the month of September, when we were doing Data Bingo, we saw huge spikes in our traffic to our dashboards. And so we were really excited about that. It's obviously too soon to see if it's going to have a lasting impact, so we'll be monitoring that as time goes on. But we were really excited about how much traffic there was and people using the dashboards in that month. So what are we trying so desperately to get people engaged with? We're going to go through a couple of sample dashboards. And the first dashboard I'm going to talk to you about is all about data quality. So MiraCosta is a public institution, and I'm sure other folks in here from public schools know we are no stranger to audits. And many of our audits, much of our funding is dependent on the success of these audits. And so one year we had the Chancellor's Office come out and audit one of our programs, our Student Success and Support Program, which really just documents all of the different services that we provide to students. So counseling services, education planning, things like that. And the Chancellor's Office came out, did the audit, and holy bad data, Batman, we failed spectacularly. It was very, very bad. And so we knew that we needed a way to monitor our data on a more regular basis so that we weren't scrambling as soon as the Chancellor was about to come out and clean up our data then and miss a whole bunch of stuff. So what we came up with was this. This is essentially just a calendar view of our academic year, so it goes from June until May, and each month is its own little heat map. And so each day is how many services were entered on that day. If we zoom in to April, which is a very typical month, you can see how the services are distributed. It's pretty light on the weekends, mostly because the only services that happen on the weekends are online services the students are doing themselves. And then throughout, on the days of the week, we see pretty normal distribution of things. Some Fridays are lighter, but overall, nothing really stands out to me here. If I zoom into the neighboring month, my spidey senses start tingling about two things. One, I just told you we don't do a lot of services on Saturdays, so why are there 368 on this one? I know why. It's because we had rapid registration that day. That's a day where we invite a bunch of high schoolers to our campus. They do orientation, they do counseling appointments, so okay, that's fine. But what's not fine is this. I have no explanation for why there are 1,200 services the Tuesday after Memorial Day. And you can see that immediately jumps out. That is way higher than any of the other days. So the next tab that we have allows folks to dig in a little bit deeper and see what services are being entered those days. So these are the 2 months we were just talking about, which is April and May of this year. But each of these has a drop down above it where you can change the month. So if we change it to May 2018, I kind of want to see, was this typical last year too? Did we see this weird spike that a Tuesday? Well, yes, we did. But still, I don't know why this is happening. Nothing that I can remember. There's no rapid registration. There's nothing that would indicate why there would be this many services. So this is when those hidden charts come in that you learned about in the escape room. And if you click on the day in question, this 1,200, a second table will pop out with more detail. And if I zoom in here, I immediately see the culprit. Our admissions and records batch upload process that happens on a nightly basis entered 976 services this day. That's very weird. I'm still very perplexed and scratching my head as to why all of these placements happened. If I look back to the previous year and blow that up, I see almost the exact same thing. There's 944 placement services being updated automatically. I won't go into the details, mostly because I'm not a programmer and I don't know the details, but essentially what this dashboard allowed us to uncover was a huge glitch in our coding with this, the way this direct placement happens on a nightly basis. And for some reason, this Tuesday after Memorial Day created a perfect storm for duplicating a bunch of services and entering them multiple times. So we were able to go in very quickly. We saw this and we said, this doesn't look right. How can we fix it? What's going on? And so we could remedy it very quickly and we didn't have to fail another audit. The director of this program also has a weekly subscription to this dashboard. So every week she gets it in her email automatically. She can look at it and see if something seems awry pretty much instantaneously, and we can go in and we can make the updates. So the next dashboard is changing gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk to you about throughput. That sound effect happened too fast for me. So at MiraCosta, we define throughput as the percent of students who get through a particular course in a specific time frame. And this dashboard in particular is looking at our first transfer level English course, which is English 100, and how many students are getting through in a 1-year time frame from when they start English. The chart I'm going to show you is a Sankey chart, so I'm going to show it to you in segments because I think it's much easier to digest that way. So on this side over here on the left, we see students' first English course, and right now it is filtered to be English 50. English 50 is one level below that transfer level course that's in question. The next segment is the outcome of that course. And again, we have this filtered right now to look at just at students who took English 50 first and passed it. And then what did they do in their second term after that? What was the outcome in that term? And then the same for term 3 as well. With the ultimate goal of getting students up here to this right-hand corner. All the students who make it there have passed English 100 in 1 year. And if we hover over that, you can see the different pathways students are taking to get there. The thicker the path, the more students are going that route. There's also a tooltip when you hover that tells you the percent of students. So of these students who took English 50 and passed it, 51% got through that English 100 course in 1 year. It's not spectacular, but it's slightly more than half. What's more concerning is this bar down here at the bottom. This is a really big, thick pathway here. And this is students who passed English 50 and then just stopped taking English. So they were successful and then they stopped. And this is actually a third of these students. So this was, as soon as we showed the English department this was a red flag for them, and I'll get more into what they did with that information in a minute. But this is a picture of students who passed English 50. What about students who didn't? If we change that filter to not passing English 50, their picture is very different. The first thing that should jump out to you is how much larger this bottom pathway is. Before we were looking at a third of students who just stopped enrolling after English 50. Now we're looking at 3/4. So these are students who didn't pass, they weren't successful, and then clearly just gave up. What's even more concerning is if you hover over that end goal of passing English 100, you can probably hardly even see those pathways because they are so thin. Only 3% of students who didn't pass English 50 the first go actually reached that ultimate benchmark of getting through that course. And so this is actually a fairly new dashboard, but as soon as we rolled it out to the English department, it started a lot of dialogue, and they wanted to immediately start talking with the counseling department, saying, okay, as soon as we see that students are not going to pass English 50, we need to get them set up with a counselor. We need to make sure that we do more intrusive and earlier interventions to make sure that students are getting the support they need to not reach that point where they're just going to give up on getting through the transfer level English course. And now, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it is Kimberly Coots here to talk about more dashboards.
Hi, everybody. We're going to talk a little bit about the student journey. At MiraCosta, the student journey is one of students in peril. 75% of our first-time freshmen will not make it to graduation or transfer within 3 years. We are a 2-year college. And for faculty and staff that are dedicated to truth, justice, and student success, yes, there are a lot of superhero puns coming here too, that was really unacceptable. So the college began participating in a program called Guided Pathways. And Guided Pathways is a process by which we follow cohorts of students from the moment they enroll to the point of graduation. And along the way, there are key milestone points that our office is responsible for assessing. Research has shown that if students reach specific milestone points within a period of time, the likelihood of them making it to graduation increases. So we want to be there as soon as possible to provide those supports for those students. Now, there are 22 different metrics that we measure as a part of the Guided Pathways process for the entirety of our student body. And we provide reports, dashboards on each of those, but in a pretty disparate fashion, onesie, twosie sorts of things. And our boss came to us one day and said, you know, it'd be really neat if we put all 22 of those metrics on the same dashboard so that we could have a 30,000 foot level view of what we're doing. Now, I know we've all just spent a week learning why that's a really bad idea. I get it. But when the bat phone rings, kind of have to answer it. So I think we've come up with a pretty nice compromise. This is our Guided Pathways dashboard. Along the top, you have donut charts that show the percentage of students who've achieved certain unit metrics in years 1, 2, and 3. And then the one on the far right is the percent of students who are ultimately successful, getting that degree, certificate, or transferring. Along the bottom are individual bar charts showing each of those metrics. Yes, there are more than 22 of them up there, showing each of those individual metrics on a timeline divided out by students' first term, first year, second year, and third. Over on the far left-hand side, we have the total number of students in the cohort, and on the right-hand side, we have some filters that you can do a little bit of a deeper dive. Now, this is not intended to be the sole source of research for Guided Pathways. In this workbook, we have several other time trend and snapshot views doing comparisons. So this is just an idea to see the process holistically that students follow when they enroll in the college. Okay, so if we break this out and we look at year 1, we can see things like the number of students who attempted their transfer math. Did they go in and see a counselor in their first year? And did they complete a minimum of 24 units by the end of that first year? All of these leading, hopefully, to greater success. The other nice thing about this dashboard is that it is filterable. So if someone were to click on any one of those bars, it will filter the rest of the page to show what kind of impact that particular metric has on the overall outcome. So right now, that finger is pointing towards the students who attempted transfer level math, just attempted, didn't need to complete it, in their year 1. And right now, before we click it, we have a overall success rate of 23%. When we filter that, the picture is very different. And so users can go in and select one particular filter or multiple filters to allow for them to see which of those metrics is getting the most bang for their buck, essentially. So this has been something that has been really helpful for our Guided Pathways design team. Okay. Student equity is at the forefront of everything we do at MiraCosta. We do not present a report anymore without disaggregating all of the data to look at all of the different communities that we have within our student body. And so we were asked to create a disproportionate impact heat map for the college to see, are there any particular demographic group that is under or overperforming compared to those of their peers? Now, this is our disproportionate impact heat map. Over on the left-hand side, we have 2 columns for 2 demographic categories. I've got it simplified now to just look at age, but you can do age and gender, ethnicity, etc. And then we have a single metric up at the top, so we're looking at the students who persisted from their first term to their second. And where you see red, there's evidence of impact. Where you see gray, there is no evidence of impact. And very quickly, we realized that we had a problem. Older students, or non-traditional students, and by older we mean those over the age of 25, those students were not succeeding in any of our metrics compared to those of their younger peers. So we presented this information to our student services department and said, what do we think is going on here? Because we were seeing this across all the metrics. And they came to the conclusion that while we do a great job of getting high school students transitioned from high school into college and on their way, we don't have anything that's really tailored to the older student population. And so they began creating orientations specific to students who may be coming to school for the first time as an older adult. We are right next to Camp Pendleton, so we have a lot of our students who are leaving the military and coming to school for the first time. And so we want to create those services for those students, and this is the way that we're able to show it to them. This disproportionate impact dashboard is actually the foundation of our campus-wide student equity plan. They look to this information first. Now, this is not the only view we have of this. In the upper left-hand corner, we have a parameter that selects different views. So if they were to change it from a heat map to a bar chart, then you get to see the magnitude of the impact for each of the groups. And disproportionate impact is a little bit of a tricky concept to wrap your brain around. So we provide very detailed tooltips so that the end user, who may not be familiar with this type of information, has all the information they need to make the assessment. And then for those who are really into the data, we provide a numeric table for them so that they can really dig deeper. Okay. The last thing we're going to talk about is something that has been a very interesting experience for us. Is there anybody here from Pierce College in Washington? No? Okay. Well, this is where we stole it from. Our faculty in our math and biology departments went to a presentation, and they were interested in finding out if a student's experience in the same course varied depending on the instructor that they took the course with. Now, anybody who works in academia knows that that is not an untouchy subject. We only did this when the faculty requested this information and made sure that their dean was really well aware of what we were doing. This is a very simple bar chart, okay, that shows the success rates and then a heat map at the bottom to show the grade distributions by individual faculty members. We allow them to filter by campus, course, day of the week, time of the day. And this is our success distribution by faculty member for a Bio 100 class. This is a Gen Ed entry-level bio class. Definitely some gasps went up. Okay, so we have a range of about 60%. I am not saying that one end of the spectrum is any better or worse than the other. I'm just saying that there is a very different experience for students depending on the faculty member that they go and see. You will also note along the bottom, there are no faculty names. We have anonymized those intentionally so that the focus is really on the student's experience and not on individuals. One of the first things that when the faculty saw this and they went, wow, was the fact that we do have part-time faculty who may come in and they may only teach a single course. And so these may be the reasons that we have such a wide spread. So Lisa, to her credit, recommended that we put a filter or a slider in there that would allow you to control for the number of grades a particular faculty member assigned. And so we allow users to go in and say, okay, I don't want people faculty who've taught 26 students compared to one that may have taught 500. So we changed that slider to 200, and our faculty said, okay, before you change that, we know that the outliers are our part-time faculty. We're not going to have this big distribution from our veteran faculty. We set it to a minimum of 200 students. Yeah, it still existed. That was a fun meeting. This really opened some eyes. And the faculty got together in a meeting, and it was really cool to be able to be a part of this, and started talking about things like their syllabi, their grading policies, what topics were they covering, and putting more emphasis on one topic compared to another, depending on the faculty member, and providing additional support to associate new faculty who may not be familiar with the policies and procedures of our college. So this really has begun to start a really neat conversation and some action. I have a faculty member who checks this every semester. She's making changes to her syllabi and checking it to see, we have to give it time for the data to be solid, but checking to see if there is an impact, if the changes she's making is making an impact on our students. We have also implemented recently row-level security, which allows us to build dashboards that allow faculty to go in and see their own data compared to the department, but nobody else can see their data, which is really important from a faculty privacy conversation. So, armed with this information, we have the very awesome job of being able to train superheroes, and we are very grateful for that. Armed with all of these dashboards, the ones we've shown you and many others, our faculty and staff are now superheroes on their own. They can go out and do good with our students, and we couldn't be happier about that. So thank you all so much for attending our session today. We really appreciate it. If we can't stress enough the importance of filling out the evaluation, we're going to be doing this presentation at other events, and we would love the feedback. So thank you all very much. We're out of time. They haven't kicked us out yet, so if you have any questions, we won't leave until they say we have to.
Thank you.
Thank you.